Hey Tom,
Good morning.
trying to figure this out. We go. Um,
It it's figuring out day.
yeah, it is. I just got an update, and it's quite good. So I think we'll just start with that. Can you see? No, you can't, can you? That was weird. You can see my Mac, right?
Uh, yes.
It managed to end that. Okay, yeah, it's doing funny things. How are you?
Yep. Well, trying to get back into the stream of things. My daughter graduated, up to San Marcos and with
Fantastic.
family and whatnot, and just now trying to put the house back together again.
Huh, sounds like a
And
good
then I got an
graduation.
email on Saturday that my network infrastructure was no longer going to be supported by Netgear, and therefore I needed to buy a whole new network infrastructure, which of course said, "Oh yeah, no problem. We'll just upgrade all this stuff and it'll all work." And then of course everything broke.
That's kind of ridiculous. That's
Well, all the IoT devices didn't immediately reconnect, and basically we're having to reset them all. And you don't realize how many of them you have until suddenly something doesn't work.
yeah, true.
I still have two more pieces to fix there. I have the garage door opener and the solar panels.
Oh, why are you doing such big updates?
Well, I mean, I had to replace the entire router and satellites and WAPs and stuff. So,
Right.
and it was supposed to be simple. Claude told me it was going to be simple. It lied.
Hmm.
I
Yeah.
had one of the greatest laughs. I said, it said, "Well, I understand you're frustrated, but the good news is you won't have to touch this again for 5 to 7 years." And I said, "Famous last words," and it went, "Ha, okay." So when it wakes you up at 11 o'clock at night, to because the some firmware update has bricked your system, then you can call me wrong. Which I had to laugh at.
Yeah. It's
Claude knows the life of a technology person disturbingly well.
yeah. Oh, that's annoying.
Where is everybody?
That's a good question. It's a good question. Okay. Yeah, the one thing I want to show you before I get out, the way this is now, it's such a small thing, but come on. Layout is now on the left, focus is on the right. And that was originally a mistake and we went back, but when you're right-handed, it's more easy to go this way than that way.
Hmm.
So that's the kind of testing we're doing.
I'm not right-handed though.
Yeah, not exactly. These things should be switchable and configurable. That's very important. I'm going to have to write down a little bug. You can see how transparently I do that. So what is that symbol? Can't remember. Do you know the paragraph mark? Do you remember what the keyboard shortcut for that is?
No, I never write that. I actually only generate it. What have Word generate it for? There it is.
Yeah, yeah. I just use Jira with the guys.
How many people do you have working on this?
One for the Mac and one for the Vision at the moment.
And you're generating enough revenue to keep them on the payroll?
Absolutely not. So I'm going to have to start marketing very soon.
Mm.
I'm tapping on
Is
this. I'm
some
not sure.
As
Right.
someone who is venturing into that territory myself, I'm beginning to, I don't know. We'll see.
Boom. Okay. Good. So let me get back to Zoom. Oh, there it is. Stop share. There's nothing interesting here now. I'm just going to send a message saying, please do this now. Okay. Yeah, no, the fun thing with with the vision stuff now is it's come along far enough that I can start doing a user guide.
Hmm.
And
Okay.
that's kind of amazing. That's for me, that's a huge extra, yeah, huge new level. You know, I do think it's important to kind of in a way start with a user guide, as in almost start with an ad, and then you use that to generate the spec and then go that way. But after a certain amount of testing, a lot of that will fall by the wayside.
Hmm.
You know, like where the layout should be. I know it's a huge piece of detailed faff, but it matters in usage. And, you know, Emily doesn't go in, my wife, you met Emily, right?
Yeah, yeah, I know Emily.
Yeah. She doesn't go in very often in the headset, so she usually sees it like you just did. And she has noticed that it's a lot smoother now, as in I get to do things I want quickly.
Hmm.
So even though we do want gestures, even though a lot of the experimental work with Sloan and all of that stuff is really important, sometimes you just want to tap something.
Hmm. Yeah, I mean, it's always as someone who's designed both well, classroom instructions, war game instructions, technical instructions. I used to always get mad at people when they were like, "Oh, we'll just have training." I'm like, if you have to have training, nobody's gonna get it. At that point, you've already lost. Um, I remember my one of my crowning achievements was we built a system. About 15 years ago, the state suddenly required that everybody put their CV and their syllabi online, so the students could look at them before the semester started. And we had been using this content management system, which was an open source content management system, and we had them build out this so that it would work for the whole system, and developed automation thing where people could just sort of upload stuff. And the with 5 minutes of online training, they could we had 4,500 syllabi and about 18,000 other pieces of content uploaded within like 6 weeks. And that I considered was a massive success compared to weeks and weeks of training on the learning management system that you know nobody remembers.
Hello, people. And Peter D.
Hello.
I can see you
Hello.
are no longer with a dark background.
Up in North Carolina. I'm about ready to get on the road to go to South Carolina. So uh, heading back to the beach, another beach.
Oh, very good. And Peter, you look like you've had
Life
some
is rough.
fun.
Well, I figured I retired last year. I got to take at least a year and not really do too much. And then after a year, I'm going to get really bored and want to play with things more.
Hmm,
Just haven't had a rest in 42 years, you know? So,
that's a
hey,
while.
I get it.
I love your ad, the latest ad for Author, the thing with the music and whatnot on YouTube. It was really well done.
Thank you. I was just pasting it in here to see if Tom and Peter wanted to see it, but you have seen it. Because obviously the visuals are AI generated,
Yeah.
except, well, actually for the, yeah, I'm also doing one for the Vision, which has actual stuff. Yeah, Tom and Peter, if you don't mind looking, I would absolutely love your perspective on what I put in the link there that Peter just mentioned.
The paper, you got the papers in the video looked like manuscripty. It looked more like paper versus just white boxes. Um, that was just the video makes it look, again, it's a video, you make it look, prettier than you can maybe make it in real life for now. But I mean, just having that kind of gimmick in the true VR headset world, I think would help people fall into it. It's that skeuomorphic kind of thing that just draws people in. But right now, of course, the AI can generate that stuff. Generating for real takes a lot more work.
Very true.
But it certainly sells well, I think. And the music and the lyrics that you got worked. They explained enough of it, and it's just it was a pleasant advertising experience too. When if that gets stuck in between some sort of YouTube video I'm watching, I wouldn't scream as much as I do for some of the ones I see. But now you got to figure out how to get that into rotation somehow, like popping up in people's feeds, Mac users.
That's actually quite.
Oh, where'd you find all those extras? That was like Hollywood.
Yeah, no, it's kind of I use imagine.arts, which is just improved immeasurably. It's not super cheap. The tokens do cost, but what is achievable is amazing. And obviously, the notion here is grounding it in reality by AI, which is
ironic.
But here, I'll show you guys the secret sauce.
Yeah, see, I'm more interested in how you make it. The thing, okay, great, you did great artwork and stuff, but it's like, okay, which tool did you use? It's more interesting to me how you program the darn thing with, and just your process, because I'm a coder. I want to see how to do it is more interesting than the thing, actually, for me.
This is it.
That's it.
So imagine.art, and right now I'm doing a new one, but this is one I just did. And if I click on it, you can see this on the right is the entire prompt.
So imagine.ai.
.art, imagine.art.
.art. Okay, don't know them.
So I just they have all the main kind of providers, so to speak, of imagery. So I just, because I'm trying to show the whole map thing, I just got it to do this one. Isn't this kind of incredible?
There's a reason why people
think
to
do that.
Are intelligent.
It's just that prompt. So the earlier prompts I had for that was, okay, so here's someone working on a table. That's like a map view. This was the one that I have in the ad right now, but I thought maybe show it from a laptop as well. This is how it ends. And that is pretty close to the Apple Vision Pro. See, the whole IP thing is interesting. Sometimes it gets upset if I say Macintosh. I have to say Mac OS or the other way around, and I don't know.
How did you get the actors from Hogwarts?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, the Hogwarts background. That's interesting. It is kind of Hogwartsy.
Well, also the girl looks an awful lot like Hermione.
Yeah, this is true. What I think is really, look at that old computer. I do not approve. But here she's going between two things, a blackboard and a table, right? And it's seamless. Now there's one that surprised me even more. Yeah, look at this. That's
cool.
It is so cool, except what the heck kind of laptop is that?
It's a retro book. They're going to be really
Retro.
big in 10 years.
The retro book, yes.
The retro
book,
yeah.
or steampunk, a steampunk one. Yeah,
it's a steampunk laptop.
Who knows?
So I have one queued, so I can show you, if I just do text to video, describe the video. So this is the same prompt as you saw there, but I didn't like the laptop, so let's see if we can modify it.
Maybe can you paste that text into the chat just so it's in the history so I can look at that at some point? Because it's amazing what you're doing is The authoring skills you have here are amazing.
Yeah.
So about how many hours of time is this?
It's not that much, and the thing is, it is amazing. But and I would say I'm a skilled visual artist. I have a degree from art university and all of that, but that's not what's happening here, right? It's to an extent, that new expression, something is being de-skilled. There's not a lot of artistry in here, right? It's
Yeah, but
experiment.
you also can look at it and say this is crap, which is where your art background comes into play. This doesn't look right. This needs to be redone. Someone who doesn't have your visual sense probably wouldn't catch that. I mean, that's the augmentation aspect of it.
Yes. So I'm going to do this one now. I'm going to do force. Okay. Female. No, I'm going to do male this time. Got to have a good mix. A male student working on a large blackboard showing concepts and connective lines. So the fact, hang on, about history of Europe. I think it actually might catch that now. Because when I asked it to do concept mapping, as you can see here, it is actually a concept map, right? It's not just stuff on the screen. And connective lines about the modern history of Europe, where concepts connect to other concepts as well as connective strings lead away from the blackboard to the screen of a Mac laptop with the camera panning around, blah, blah, blah. Generate. So once I see a result, I will go back into that. And
So how do you pay? How do you pay for this? I mean, you said it was expensive, but
it's not
is it?
it's not super expensive, but like so I just went back here to show you something else. It'll say here, so I spent £70, which is like $80, $90 recently, and I think I got maybe 20 generations. And you can go on a bigger plan. So let's pretend to upgrade, right? So that's £128 a month. So if this is your full-time job, no question, it's useful. But I mean, monthly, look at this. Absolutely ludicrous. So what I did was I buy credit packs.
Does it tell you how many tokens you get? Oh, there we go. Was that are credits tokens? No.
They purposely make it really messed up.
Yeah. Do you have an estimate on how many credits you use to build your commercial?
No. That's not something my brain is really good at doing. But then,
Well, that's what the AI is for.
No, exactly. So the way the workflow is really, really cool. So let's say I want to use this now. So sorry, I click the obvious download button, and obviously from Safari I can drag it straight. I don't have to go to a folder. So I drag it onto Final Cut in the background. So now,
Right in the thinking space, spread your ideas, expand your mind, see connection.
and in here I just mostly, because this is texture rather than text, I do have it fade in and out and stuff, and that's it.
So the music is Sora.
Yeah, the music is Sora. It took me a while to really get Suno. Excuse me, it's Suno.
I'm Suno. Sorry, my bad.
Yes, Suno has gotten insane. So here, this is Edgar just humming, right? So he just hummed into it, and then I told it what to do, and it did this. Skip in a bit. All these versions of it. That one wasn't very clear. Let's try that. What the actual madness? Yeah, the world is different now. But yeah, what I was going to say is I'm very, very glad that you guys are here because finally now I'm at a stage where I'm building a user guide for Author Vision. You know, what the gestures are, the node options, the toolbar, and all of that stuff. And that's an incredible place to be. Because obviously we try to design something based on something idealized, like an ad. You want the essence of something, but once you start making it, it changes. So yeah, that's been amazing. Of course, they messed it up right before our meeting, so some of the things just don't work right now, but that's reality. But
You find that a lot with the Vision. Are they iterating so fast that it's breaking software?
No, it's more that I changed my mind.
That's your fault.
Well, the thing is that oh, Mohita's here. Hello, Mohit. Can you hear me?
Hi, Phil.
Hello. I saw you.
Hi,
Hi.
Tom.
I saw you were early, and now you're back. So that's very nice.
Yes, so yeah, I had come to a family function, so I was not able to join earlier, but
Yeah,
I'm
no,
happy to.
that's fine. We were just talking about the design process. I'm actually going to go back in and try to be a little bit live for you guys because I'm so grateful for how we start these sessions. You know, you think you're looking at something, you're making a little comment, and then I'm not sure if you realize that so much of the time before next week, I'm thinking about what you guys said. So let me just mirror my view. All right. Please tell me you can see, right?
Yes.
Yep.
Yeah,
Okay, cool. All right, because we're at the stage now with this where we're really into more details and more polishing, which I'm very excited about. Already this is quite good, and for some reason the outline didn't work for a while, but now it does. So you can actually work here doing normal things, but of course our shared interest is the map. So we have a way now where these are the headings, sections as you saw last week, right? But if they don't exist when you come here, there is an option inside the layout, sections to nodes. So it goes through, and every time it comes across the heading, takes all the text underneath it until the next heading and makes a node. So that means it becomes much more, yeah, you can do everything here. Now, this little guy here, did you see that last week that I have it? Because you're supposed to, yeah, okay, oh, it does work. It stopped working for a second. Did you see what happened? So this is the tangled argument. It's somewhere in here. So I interact with this, but if I now select it, look at the bottom, then we get an option. The option is not there when you're not selected, because it's really important. These are very clean, right? So now I touch that. This closes, and it scrolls to that in the main document. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm.
That's huge. That's not. Mm-hmm. Let me show you again, because it's so cool. Right.
That's really good.
So let's say, what's that?
Do you have a hierarchy like H1, H2 kind of thing, so you can say take nested things yet or not? That's more complicated, I know, but just
It's a very important thing you're saying, and
yeah, like chapters and stuff.
So I try to develop the interactions more kind of generally. There's a bit of overlap, so you know what? Let me just do this before I answer your question. I'm going to do layout, distribute, horizontal. Now it's better. Close. Whoops. Open. Deselect. Have you noticed the speed of which I do these things now?
yeah, it's really fast.
Because this is really small, and it's better hierarchy with all these weeks of testing and showing you guys. it's so quick. I have access to it. But Peter, to go back to what you were talking about, the numbers are not in the paper. It says scenario 6, but there's no number before it. So when it generates these, that I call sections, it adds the number so that we can do the beginning of what you said. So choose selections, and now I can do layout alphabetical, you see. If I do by depth, and now it's reversed, so I'll have to do layout, undo reverse, and then it changes that. That's a bit tight, so we then have distribute depth long as an easy one. So no, I don't have a way, and I really like what you're saying, I don't have a way to maybe have a full chapter here and then something like 10.1 below or something like that. That's a really good idea. Thank you very much. That's going to give me a lot of...
I got to just look at the research. There's a couple of folks doing that for like file hierarchies and stuff like that, where you got collections of collections and you want to expand it all, or you want a flat finder kind of view like Mac, or you want to really have it be open as new window every time. I mean, open a new tab kind of thing. And I think someone's worked out of some visual ways of doing that that are nice. I saw years ago. So I got to go dig out the human, it was CHI conference kind of stuff. It was maybe a SIGGRAPH. I don't remember. But it was really nice. And it was done way back when no one had this kind of hardware for the most part.
Sounds more like a SIG-Chi than SIGGRAPH.
Yeah, maybe a SIG-Chi someplace. It was something like more of a programmerly thing than the arts kind of thing. Maybe it was a different track. That's part of my retirement research is go back over the stuff for 20 years and say, there's that stuff that I looked at back in the 90s. I don't know. That's still not been done right.
How much of that is digital?
Oh, well, I don't know. I got problem is I got like dead links, I got a link to a PDF. I may have stored it on some other hard drive that I haven't had in decades. And so I got to kind of go find it in the Internet Archive and stuff like that, or in the conference sites. A lot of stuff is still hiding out there, kind of dark web or gray web, I guess. I got to get access to it,
This is the kind of logistical nightmare that AI is actually really good at. What I'm literally working on right now in the background is I have so over the course of the last semester, I completely redesigned my course using AI, and it's the equivalent of about 2,500 pages of text, and I am having Claude right now parse it down, give me an executive summary, put it into a logical order. And of course, I just ran out of tokens.
Yeah, that's usually the problem. It's like, oh, I'm almost to the finish. No, and then that's their user model. Like, oh, now you get to pay the higher tier.
Yeah.
All right. Well, I'm stuck until 2:30 this afternoon. It literally just flipped over. But anyway, but I mean, obviously, if you throw money at it, you can do all sorts of things. But the fact that it's even able to do that is just amazes me.
I just want to show you one more thing before I jump out of this on a practical notion. So the complaint that the nodes of concepts were not as related to the document was actually from someone at Apple. So that's why we have this thing which I just showed you. This is a section, I click there and it jumps there, right? The other thing is if you select a node and if you just open it, there is, it's clean, but if you select, let's do this one actually, then you get the edit button instead of this guy, right? So then the edit area comes to the forefront where the toolbar is, which means that if you have decided to set, if you have a Bluetooth keyboard as you walk around, when you do that, then you, what I'm trying to say is the way the nodes and the sections are treated is now very different. Because they are different things. And that's the kind of stuff that's really, really hard to pre-think. And because I have these wonderful Monday deadlines to show you guys, it really helps to move things along. So yeah, I wanted to thank you for that. Deadlines make things happen, right, guys? Yeah, there were some other things going on. You were talking about running out of tokens. That is a huge thing, and I'm hoping more and more, obviously, as I'm sure you also do, we will do things locally on the devices. There's been some big developments there as well, of course.
Yeah, I've been spending a lot of time, Alama and whatnot, trying open code, or trying to do things locally. I got kind of underpowered hardware for it, unfortunately, but it's interesting to try to run the smaller models, or I'm trying to run without an NVIDIA GPU. I'm using Intel things, so I'm recompiling things. Of course, that's just me playing with things in the meantime. I'm not in a hard deadline. You're going to have to pay the NVIDIA tax probably for the foreseeable future to do anything quickly.
I saw a presentation by a Singaporean diplomat who was talking about something very relevant. Let's see if I can find it in a few seconds based on what you just said there. I think it was on the... Oh yeah, here it is. I'll put the link. It's making some very big points. I'm beginning to wonder if I should move to Singapore. Some of his key points are, as a politician, you can't really legislate if you don't know the products, if you don't know the systems. And he's talking about AI and what he's built. And he's built things on a Raspberry Pi. That seems to be becoming more and more normal. So that's kind of cool. So Mohit, you look very dressed up today. I just noticed. What's the family function? Who's getting married?
So it's my brother-in-law's brother.
Your brother-in-law's?
Brother.
Your brother-in-law's. Oh, okay, fantastic. Well, congratulations on a good day.
Thank you.
Oh, that's very good. Obviously, please interrupt and move things anywhere at any time. But when it comes to the whole AI and XR connection thing, that's something that Dave Millard really brought up when I saw him 2 weeks ago, whatever, where the AI should be able to interact with the system as a user. I thought that was very interesting. So it should have access to layouts and all these things. I'm trying to figure out what that means programmatically, and also if the user selects a node and uses some source system to draw out further information, what does that mean? Is it literally just another node in the space? I don't know. And what I think, Peter Rosilka, you've been asking for, I'm also finally looking into pictures, particularly of authors.
Oh, very good.
Yeah, so if that's useful, it would be really cool if you can toggle people's heads. But the problem with that is, unless you're talking about a historical figure with a portrait, most people's pictures are really bad. Right? Like, on Zoom, it's recently gotten a bit better, and it's good with all of you guys now, but how often do you have something that's, big window behind them, weird angle, hardly anything, right? How many
The real
authors-
benefit there, the real benefit there would be if you're at a conference and you're reviewing conference papers and you have photos of the authors of the papers, so then you can recognize the person across the room to go over to introduce yourself.
Or to avoid them. But that does assume that a good picture is available. Right, that is a real issue, but one of the benefits of course, with AI, LLM imagery, whatever we want to call it, is of course also that you should, if we have a proper pipeline, you should be able to give a few pictures of someone, no matter how bad, and it'll give you a standardized, for your preference, portrait. I did that to my contacts, and I can tell you, not everybody was pleased. They all look kind of cartoony, but they're all extremely. Let me just show you briefly. Uh, Please tell
See,
me.
I've made a cartoon icon of myself and I leaned into it, you know.
Yeah, no, that's very cool. But see these pictures here, right? They are very recognizable. Not all of them are images. She is, you know. Do you guys do that for your contacts? You can easily glance and see who's who.
Yeah, I do that.
It's kind of fun, isn't it? Like they all have little portraits. Do you do
Yeah.
pictures of them, or do you use other icons?
Uh, the pictures, if that's available, or from I pick from social media the profile photos.
Yeah, exactly. Which can be good, but not always. Um, Now, I have another question for you guys. What is your interest level in the whole reinventing EPUB? So the principle here is simplify the visual display, add metadata. That's it.
I'm thinking you're going to.
I just want to develop a greenfield format.
A new format.
Yeah.
You can't put it inside of hiding it inside some of the other formats, like putting, the annotations at the end of a PDF or at the EPUB, or putting Markdown inside something, or something inside Markdown that isn't Markdown. I don't know. I think we need something else, but I think you got to do it with inside the existing containers. Otherwise, you're forever niche and never will go anywhere. So EPUB, I think, is they haven't done as good a job as they could have to make EPUB more like Bento, more like a container box that you can put lots of other things in easily. PDF has become too proprietary, even now with it being open sourced and whatnot. But that seems to be, unfortunately, the predominant format for it. Here's a document that you're safe to show in your browser, even though it really isn't. There's all sorts of security holes in PDF. But Peter W., I'm hoping to see what you come up with. Push the edge as the envelope and see what maybe can be, I don't know, retrofitted or put into something that might actually get put in substantial number of browsers somehow. I think that's basically it. You got to be able to run it on my Android, your Apple, my desktop, whatever else is coming down the pike in the glasses. And I don't see that happening. I think everything's going to be either, I think desktop first is kind of an easiest target because you have the most plugins and the most browser power. But if you got to make everyone install your plugin to see the output, you're going to constrain yourself, I think.
Well, we could leverage the YAML format, basically have a custom variation of YAML with our schema attached, give it its own new file extension, but any YAML tool would be able to edit it then to get the raw data on the inside. So that means any programming language that has the YAML plugin library could suck the data in, and then it's off to the races.
Yep. I mean, that's sort of the equivalent of, you're building a schema. The YAML kind of has variable names, not paragraph list like HTML has, or PDF, which has visual things. You don't care what the font is. You care that the same font are used for all your paragraphs. There's named references.
YAML's the bento box. And then since you can easily nest other arbitrary documents and file formats inside of a YAML file, which is why I love them so much, we can have our own parsable custom grammar to do things cleanly, write a parser that can suck that in. And it's doable, and it's a lot more open than one of these files that formats that compress to a zip file. And they're just ugly or not designed to be messed with, whereas a text-based format is designed to be messed with.
So I'm asking my friend Shannon here about YAML. versus EPUB, and Shannon, obviously Claude, says, because I said someone is suggesting YAML as opposed to EPUB. So I get the response, that's a strange proposal. EPUB and YAML aren't in the same category. It's like suggesting spreadsheet instead of building. EPUB is a container format. YAML is a way to represent key value pairs and lists in plain text. So Peter, defend yourself. Go.
Well, as far as media goes, you can either have a folder with the media, or you could encode the media in a text-based encoding, stick that as an embedded document inside of the YAML file, because YAML really lends itself again to nesting other formats.
No, Peter, so I understand you. What kind of document would be embedded in the YAML file?
Well, if we wanted to have our own domain-specific language that was, say, some quasi-natural language thing designed to make describing notes really easy at a high level, that could be embedded inside of the YAML format. Then we could also embed a peg grammar for it. The grammar would be part of the YAML file too. From that, you could automatically derive a parser for the grammar, apply that to the embedded file that's using the grammar, and get that to generate a JSON representation of something that the user wrote without having to have the user think in terms of JSON. The user would be thinking in terms of RDSL. So you could be embedding language grammars that could automatically generate parsers in the ecosystem. So basically, assuming that we're probably going to be biased towards the JavaScript ecosystem, although with oh boy, got a wasp in here with me. Hope it doesn't attack me. With the possibilities that you get now that we have multiple languages that have hooks into the YAML format, you could decide to work in the Rust world or work in Crystal or something else, and it'd be very easy to get at the underlying data.
When you say underlying data, what kind of data are you thinking about?
Okay, I'm thinking about a dot format representation of a graph. I'm thinking about JSON for regular data, CSV, if you had a table of numbers that you wanted to get displayed in a spreadsheet kind of format. So all those text-derived formats can get thrown in with YAML being the bento box.
Right. So it sounds to me like it's the other way around. Like YAML should be inside an EPUB. Because
YAML makes more sense at the top level, though.
Yeah, but does it? Because
you can hide it. You hide it inside the EPUB. You could have an EPUB that just has the YAML with your stuff inside. And I kind of crazy because most people wouldn't know what to do with your YAML and the YAML documents it contains. So the EPUB format could be a place to hold it, but it'd be like a big zip file with most of the zip files. Most readers wouldn't know what to do with it. Have to just discard it. So do you put like a summary PDF or an EPUB visualization of the thing so that most normal people can actually read the flat document? So you got to have, two basic parts. One is the publicly viewable one that's kind of like a PDF-ish or the EPUB-ish version that's visible to 99% of the people, and then all this meta information just hiding in the background. Make it bulky, but it's zippable.
Well, I'd probably have the parser for any custom DSL generate.
Peter, hang on. Before you explain all that, can you tell me why anyone would need that for an academic article outside of where you're presenting data? When they're presenting text and maybe images, which can be of various levels of interactivity, why would this be necessary?
So they could be working with a DSL that doesn't make them tear their hair out like working with a LaTeX document source file would.
Well, but why would anyone want to work with LaTeX? I mean, LaTeX is basically
Exactly. You wouldn't want to work with LaTeX. That's the whole point. The
Yeah.
system could then generate LaTeX as an output format based upon the human-friendly DSL that the person would be taking notes in.
Yeah, but I mean, the only two people in the world who works in LaTeX is you and Mark Anderson, right? People just, I mean, it is an absolute horrendous blight upon humanity. It is absolutely, I could spend
Yes, but
an
the
entire
rendered
session.
results you can't approximate with anything else without going through excruciating pains.
Yeah, but from author, as you know, you can also generate LaTeX, right? Because it's such a template-based system, the way we do it from author, you copy this section, paste it in a template, copy this section, paste it in a template. But in terms of the storage format, which is what we're talking about, right? What is, and in addition to the basic text, why do you feel you need to go further than an XML or an HTML layout for the text?
Well, I want to have standoff markup as the core. If you're doing with HTML, you have problems with overlapping ranges. You have problems with someone other than the author wanting to apply annotations on top of something else. We can go in and manually edit a PDF, but then I've manually edited the PDF.
No, but
and
this
it's
is
become
not
difficult.
an editable file. We're talking about explicitly a publication file, like a paper that's been published that you should absolutely be able to annotate, but you should not be able to edit it.
But you can merge annotations in a standoff markup format. I can have my set of annotations, Tom can have his set of annotations, Mohit can have his set of annotations, and they can all be referencing overlapping segments of the text. And to do that in HTML is basically it's a non-starter unless you start wrapping every single character in a separate span, and then you can do incredibly verbose, hairy styling to achieve the effect, but you're fighting the underlying format if you're doing it that way.
Okay, so when you're talking about the notion of overlapping, are you talking about, can you give me a concrete example of when that's a problem? Because if you want to cite a paragraph or a sentence today in HTML, that's not that impossible. So where is the overlap concern?
The overlap is if you have different layers of data. I might have one layer where I'm interested in locations. I might have another layer where I'm interested in conference series. And
what do you mean by that?
I mean, I want to have by layer completely different sets of markup applied to the underlying document. In one, I might want to be interested in argumentation structures. And that's one set of annotations and markup describing the document. I might be interested in entity name recognition, and that would be another set of annotations.
Okay, so you're talking about you as the end reader being able to open a document and to apply rules to select and highlight different logical parts of the document at the same time.
Yeah.
Okay.
And also being able to pull in annotations from someone else. So it's much easier with standoff markup because then you're describing the ranges in the document and you're not having to embed physical tags inside of the document. If you have to do it in terms of tags embedded in the document, then the tags are basically frozen at document creation time. So unless you wrap every single letter in a span, being able to make arbitrary selections is a nightmare. If you're dealing with a standoff markup format, you could be doing it programmatically. So I could tell the system that I'm interested in Frode and all variations of his name. The system could then maybe even go off to an LLM Oracle, have it analyze from the document all the different ways that Frode was referred to, then form a traditional search, run the search against the raw text, generate the ranges of all the corresponding search hits, and then apply the markup to it.
What kind of Okay, I think you're talking about very, very specific.
Well, I'm talking about a general mechanism that isn't going to break if I'm combining metadata from multiple sources or applying it to a document that I can't directly go into and mess with.
Right.
Because like if I put annotations in a PDF file and I want to share it with you, you've got your PDF copy of the conference paper A. I have my copy of conference paper A. They're both named conference paper A. They have different annotations that have been overlaid into them. Merging them is going to be a nightmare. And there's a chance that we might have different tags attached to the same span. In standoff markup, that's not an issue. If you're dealing with an embedded markup format, it's a nightmare because you've got to agree on conventions, have a lot of extraneous anchors all over the place.
Okay. I mean, how well is YAML used in academia today?
It probably isn't. It's more used on the programmer side because of its unique feature of being able to embed subdocuments just by knocking them in a level of indentation, which means they can be in completely different file formats. Then when you're usually in an editor like VS Code, you simply tell VS Code, now I'm using XML, now I'm using CSV. The highlights will be wrong for everything except for those subdocuments, but for the subdocument that's in the alternate notation, you'll be able to get nice syntax highlighting and editor support.
How do you read YAML documents currently?
Oh, that's easy. You just do YAML.parse versus YAML.stringified output. And basically every single programming language has a YAML library that it can import. So you will import YAML from YAML, and then you'll do YAML stringify or YAML parse. And YAML also has support for handling circular structures and graphs. So you can have a YAML reference that appears at multiple points in the document. So you can actually build link structures that you couldn't painlessly build in JSON. Because basically, YAML is a superset that has these added features. Now, there are hairy aspects because when you have an embedded subdocument, you can basically use slightly different notation to tell it, is this an embedded document where I want to strip out any leading and trailing content? Do I want to try to normalize indentation? Those kinds of things. So there are a few little variants that can get complicated, and not all YAML libraries fully implement the YAML2 standard. But assuming that you're making sure that you're using a standard compliant library that's going to support the YAML features that you're using in your YAML format, it won't be a problem. And also, again, because you can easily embed the subdocuments, then if you do want to have a custom DSL, the custom DSL can live inside of the YAML. You can include the grammar for that DSL in the YAML, which makes it self-documenting format, because then instead of just having the text in my wonderful funky notation, I can also have the PEGI grammar source that can generate a parser for it living alongside.
So I'm asking, Claude was saying earlier that Markdown isn't so good at metadata, so just put in the commentary here. Yeah, you're talking about Markdown and YAML having internal addressing that is stable. Claude is saying it doesn't, which is interesting.
Well, it depends on how you design your YAML document when you're creating the data. I mean, I can write something that's going to be a mess and it can be a valid YAML file, or I can apply my semantics on my end when I'm creating the YAML file to make sure that everything's going to be consistent. So that's sort of like user level versus file format level.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't know. Tom, help. Do you have any comments in either direction?
Well, I mean, I kind of have comments in no direction in a sense. I've been thinking about a lot lately with, of the Xerox OS that Alan Kay and company built in the 70s, and the fact that it was driven by function rather than form. And in the sense that there were no applications, there was a universal file format. And so therefore it was driven by the tasks that you needed to do, and you just pulled in the tools that you needed at the time to do that. Um, the reason I bring that up is because I think AI is moving us in that direction slowly but surely. Because I can literally dump what I was working on before I ran out of tokens was, just dumping text files into Claude and saying, okay, read through this and summarize it and make connections and so on and so forth. And we're talking about 2,500 pages worth of documents here. And the thing is, it doesn't really care. There are limits, of course, to what file types it can take, but it doesn't really care. So you could upload a Markdown, you could upload a YAML, you could upload a JSON, whatever, a doc, TXT, whatever, and say, okay, mash these all together and create something useful out of them, and it'll do it. Until you run out of tokens, that is. But I mean, the point is that I think over time, what's going to happen with AIs is they're going to break down the barriers on software as well as, applications as well as documents. And the application thing that, of course, I'm been watching lately is the whole Canvas fiasco, and thinking about how much legacy software is out there with these stupid mistakes in it. And they didn't even use AI to hack it, apparently. They just figured out somebody had done a bonehead and basically tied the trouble ticket system in with the main database. And so they basically had to upload something with a little passenger on it, and it downloaded all of the data. But that's just dumb programming. But they did that thing a few weeks ago where they did a scan of OpenSSL, and that's a file that literally tens of thousands of people have looked at, and it found 400 errors that every one of those people missed, and 400 vulnerabilities that every one of those people missed. So, when we think about these things, we've built this infrastructure of built formats and built applications over the last 40 years that were created by humans. But if you were to look at the code for Microsoft Word, I'm sure there's crap in there from the 1990s that people have forgotten about, because the way these teams work is they slap it on and they forget it. They say disregard this or whatever, but it's still out there. And with AIs, you can hit all of these different things, and so AI is very deconstructive. So when it comes to file formats, I don't think AI really cares up to a certain point. If it can figure out what's in there, it can break it down and repurpose it. And I think that makes things a lot easier. I don't think in 10 years we'll be arguing about YAML versus EPUB anymore. I think it will all kind of be, yeah, whatever. Here are the three different formats we want, and let's make them work. Because that's a distraction. Think about over the years, the annoyances. I've got this in a PDF file and I can't get it out again, or I've got this in a JPEG and I can't get it to, or RAW file, or even worse, an Aperture file, and I can't extract these things anymore because they're, and that's a product of these apps creating things that that are exclusive to that application. And I've hated that for a long time, but I know that's how people make money off of it. And the question is now, I think that's going to get we're going to start seeing software that's going to be made vulnerable again because of the fact that it's so huge and complicated. On top of that all, you also have formats, file formats, as you guys were just arguing about file formats and uh, um, document structures and things like that, which are not, they're designed to be used by everybody, but they don't really work. You compromise whenever you do that. And so I run up against limitations. I'm like, okay, I'm using the Word for this, and oh crap, I can't do this in Word. Now I have to go over and do Google Docs or OpenDoc or something else because I can't get this Word to do this, or vice versa, or something. And that kind of stuff needs to go away because that interferes with my workflow. And the most important thing here is my workflow, is my ability to take, here's the idea, and I need to get it into Froda's space. What's the quickest way to get me there? And maybe it's just atomizing it and putting it back together again, which again is very hard for humans to do, but relatively simple for AIs. Just thinking out loud.
I think that goes a little against what you said in the beginning of the call today about running out of tokens, because I mean, OpenClaw was partly developed based
Yeah.
on the inventor by mistake leaving a voice note for his system. And the system, the AI, the LLM, whatever, said, what is this? This is not text.
Mm-hmm.
And went through and it figured out, oh, it's an audio file. I need to figure out some libraries to do that. And then it actually did everything. So you're absolutely right on a brute force manner, no question. But, while we're trying to figure out something to go forward with, there's also intentionality. What is
Mm-hmm.
expected to be in there, how we put it in there, and how we expect things to be read. Because even today, we can probably take almost any kind of data and present it in almost any kind of way if we really work on that process. So that's why, Peter, you're still there, right? Okay.
Yep.
Noshing off camera. It's brunch time, isn't it?
All these Americanisms. Right. And now, Peter, can you write or mention, when you're talking about Markdown, forget YAML for a second, where is the value do you see? Do you see it mostly in the reading or the authoring stage? And when it comes to an academic document being produced out of it, how do you see that process?
Well,
Yeah.
personally, I don't care for Markdown. I would rather be
Thought you
in
did.
a more explicit LaTeX kind of a notation, although LaTeX itself is way more verbose than what I want. So I'd want to be in my own DSL,
What do you mean by DSL, by the way?
domain-specific language.
Okay.
So basically, I want to have my own notation that's going to look like notes I'd be writing for myself to read, with just enough structure in them that a parser can extract that structure and generate the more formal structure that could then be dropped into a YAML file or a JSON file. So I'm going to see a comma separated list of normal text that I'm typing myself to myself. The system will be able to parse that and pull it out and turn into a bracketed or just a separate line dash leading list inside of one of the other file formats. But the goal is to take advantage of all the wonderful advanced parsing technology that we have today to reduce the user's cognitive load so that the user won't have to be formally creating these robust structures that are parser friendly.
Do you mean at the point of authoring or reading?
At the point of authoring.
So
At the point of reading, you're going to be able to have it show up looking like a beautiful PDF, or you could output it to Markdown without a problem if somebody actually likes reading the Markdown format without having it actually formatted.
So I don't. Okay. When you're talking about structures and all these things, so here you are. You're writing a paper for ACM hypertext, and what would be the process? Let's say you're writing an article on the history of domain-specific languages. What are the processes through which you would wish to do that within what you're talking about?
I'd be writing what would look like natural language, but there'd be enough structure embedded in the natural language, enough regularity that my DSL would be able to
Hang on,
extract
Peter.
the logical.
Peter, just to really make sure I understand. When you say it looks like natural language, so you yourself, as the human, would not write just natural language, or would you?
I would be writing a restricted subset of natural language.
Okay. Don't you think that's a huge ask?
Not really if that restricted subset corresponds to how you'd naturally be expressing the ideas. It would be sort of like saying that if you're going to introduce a new concept, start off by saying the name of the concept is, and then a category for the concept. So Freud is an independent scholar, or Tom is a professor. Now, that would be a very simple linguistic pattern that we could programmatically extract with the parser and then generate a little JSON representation with the name and the category after it.
Do you expect?
So I'm writing in natural language, but it's a somewhat formalized natural language where I agree that here's a couple of linguistic patterns that I'm going to use. They'll be easy to type and they'll be parsable.
How is that? Okay.
So I'm not having to write, if I'm going to write a list, I'm not having to write left bracket each list item with a comma in between them and no trailing comma or an optional trailing comma and a right bracket. That's just noise to make life easier for the parser.
Right, but if you have to write a list.
If I write red, blue, and green, the parser will be able to recognize that as being a list.
Yeah, but I mean, you could do that in any text. You just write it, enter, next line, enter, next line, or comma. You know, comma delineated lists are. I mean, Tom, let me ask you, who is an active teacher at the moment. Obviously, we want students to write clearly and cleanly. What do you feel of this approach, or what Peter's talking about, being more explicit about what that means?
Well, I mean, as someone who does a lot of writing and tries desperately to teach my students how to write, I have long since learned the difficult lesson that this is a really tough mountain for them to climb. Writing is a tough instrument to play. I mean, my favorite comment is from Andy Weir, the guy who wrote The Martian and Hail Mary. He said, "Give a man a book, and you will entertain him for a night. Teach a man to write, and he will have crippling self-doubt for the rest of his life." And it's just, the thing is that as somebody who has struggled with words for all of for most of my adult life, I'm good at it, right? My students aren't anywhere near in the same universe. And so, what I have found that I'm doing now is to use AI to help them step over some of those hurdles without, because they're used to being told they can't write and they'll never be able to write. And that may be true, but then the question is, well, is writing the only way you communicate your ideas? And that's the thing, is that I think that used to be, the answer to that was definitively pretty much yes, unless you're a very talented artist. But now I don't necessarily think that's the case anymore. And so I'm not saying writing is going to go away, but it may assume the role of radio in a television world, and which has its value in a certain aspect to it, and has a huge value to it actually. But there are many other ways in which you can spell that out. And so creating complicated entry formats for people, and I'm talking even of scholars here, honestly, because I've seen my colleagues struggle with that, is something that I think will up the level of difficulty there. I don't know, maybe it won't, but it's a real challenge to get. Yes, right, but so is writing is very linear too.
No. No.
writing is linear. I mean, writing isn't linear, but reading is linear. Let me put it that way.
No.
It's hard to not. Well, I mean, of course, unless you're James Joyce.
No. Obviously, we're having like a friendly competition in
Yeah.
a way or whatever it is. But reading a well-written book printed is extremely linear, and that is extremely good, and that is a very specific case. Absolutely, no question.
Yeah.
However, reading something on a murder wall doesn't necessarily need to be. Are you okay, Tom?
Yeah, I'm fine. Just background noise. That's all.
Oh, okay.
I want to make sure the mic wasn't picking it up.
Right. No, don't worry. Yeah, reading in a kind of a index card world or a murder wall or what we're working on here
Yeah.
doesn't have to be linear.
Yeah. Oh, I agree with that. But that's not so a writer wouldn't call that writing though. I don't think. I think a writer would call the agony of taking that and smashing it into, and they may have note cards and, you know, murder walls and red yarn connecting everything up together and all this other stuff. But they have to somehow, as someone who does this himself, smash that into a linear pathway that others can follow. And when you do that, you lose something, I think. And that's what that Vannevar Bush was talking about, is he wants to see all of those connections. And I think that's incredibly valuable, because what I'm doing right now, again, in analyzing my course, I'm trying to figure out, and this is what's really fascinating me, is all the different pathways I followed as I went through the semester, the kinds of questions that I asked, the things that I had to update, the dead ends, and the fact is I can start to approach that textually, but getting that to work right is a real chore. But again, because I've got Claude, once I have my tokens back, to smash that into a container, then it makes things possible which were difficult before. But again, I have really good connective tissue in my head. I'm very well experienced to that. I've been doing this all my life. And maybe I have a particular talent to it. I don't know. But I can tell you this, that most of my students can't do that. They need it laid out for them, and they're used to reading things in they're stuck in these linear boxes. And so that's the real challenge, and because they're also hostage then to other people's writing skills or lack thereof.
The linearization of an argument is important.
Yeah.
But we shouldn't, as I know you agree, we shouldn't lose the original context of how this was created.
Right.
And one thing that I'm reading in that brilliant book, 21st Century Brain, is the importance of being able to go from a focused mode to a wider mode.
Mm-hmm.
So that I don't think that precludes a properly written piece like Peter's talking about.
Right.
And the way that it's being produced, it is a bit of a challenge. And I think, Peter, you are very good at the way things should fit together. Much more than a student, obviously. So I think that would be different, a kind of a different requirement for what should be held.
See, I've always imagined a sort of a xylophone, or I don't know, not a xylophone, accordion effect. So, you're working in a narrow band, but then you hit something where like, I need to understand the system around this. And then I can go and see the bigger connections and pictures. And then I can go back and say, okay, I understand this better now, so I can use that on my narrow band. And now I'm going to go back here, and then I come back and I do it again. I could see that also being incredibly useful for my students if they're both in a reading and a writing perspective. So from a reading perspective, obviously context matters. And so, if you're reading the Texas Constitution, for instance, or the US Constitution, and don't have any real conception of the climate in which they were created, respectively, you may not understand why they did certain things in the way that they did. And as a matter of fact, you won't. And it's kind of my job as a teacher to bring that to them. But if they don't make that connection, and it's hard for them to make that connection, or if they're not paying attention, or they struggle with that as a thing anyway, that is lost. And to be able to do that electronically, though, where it's persistent and where they can go in and out and explore side alleys wherever they need to, I think would be immensely valuable as a teaching tool, but also as a writing tool.
Yeah,
Because as a writer, we're always learning too. I want to say that too. Writing is learning. Sorry, Peter.
Yeah, one of the ironic things I've observed is that if I'm dealing with, say, a paper that has a lot of heavy math notation in it, if I can find the LaTeX source code that was used to generate that paper, it's easier for me to read the paper's source code than it is for me to read the paper's format output. Because the
But you're
format
not normal,
output,
Peter.
well, the
Neither
format
am I.
output has the beautiful mathematic-friendly notation that a professional mathematician is comfortable with. So the mathematician has already built into his head a model of how do I parse a mathematical equation. And the mathematician will look at the visually rendered equation, instantly parse it in his head, and grok it. But if you're a non-mathematician, if you're a political scientist and you're looking at an equation describing social dynamics that has been formatted in a mathematical notation, you've got to sit there and deal with the graphical layout of all of the subcomponents of the equation, maybe even jump to the appendix if the author of the text was nice enough to have a mathematical preliminaries appendix describing his notation system. Otherwise, you've got to find some other source explaining the notation system that's being used in that boutique area of political science papers that are leaning heavily into math. Or you can look at the LaTeX source code, in which case the LaTeX commands describing the different environments and components going into that equation are explicitly stated. So it's much easier for me to read the explicitly stated semantic content as expressed in the LaTeX source code for that kind of a figure in a document. And I kind of almost wish that the viewers would give you the option of show me a figure source. If they're using one of the web-based LaTeX renderers, it'd be so nice to have that functionality because it can be easier. Now, the LaTeX source itself could be rendered in a YAML-like representation where instead of jamming the stuff together as a bunch of nested LaTeX environments, you could use the indentation-based structure of YAML to represent the exact same thing, and then suddenly it'd be even easier for you to access.
Yeah, I mean, but you know how to read LaTeX in the way that a mathematician knows how to read complex formulas. And that's because you're well practiced in it. And people who know how to read text, or maybe, my ability to read English text is far superior to my ability to read Norwegian text. That doesn't mean I can't parse it out with a bit of work, but I between my German and my English, I can usually figure out the reading. But the same thing is true though of any sort of notation method and any sort of file method, and all of them are again means to an end, because writing is just a means for communicating ideas. So is math. So are math notations, but math notations are a specific language designed around communicating ideas relating to numbers. In most cases, imaginary numbers. We don't spend a lot of time counting fingers anymore. But the idea, especially when you're talking about real math as opposed to the arithmetic we teach most of our students, that sort of stuff is, again, it's just the same thing. It's just a different language that I don't speak very well, if at all. Maybe I could parse it out just like I would parse out Norwegian with the mathematical skills, my limited mathematical skills, but it would take some work. But again, this is something I can always throw an AI at and say, okay, tell me what this means. Right?
You can't, Tom. You can't always throw an AI at it, but
yeah, I mean, you have to know what the output. You have to be able to interpret the output correctly.
I don't think that's what Peter was getting at. I think his concrete example is that he himself happened to be able to read that better.
Mm-hmm.
But I think what we all strongly agree on is that there's, in addition to a visual representation of a whether it's a maths piece or whatever it might be, there should be a very clear, straightforward, properly marked up description for specialist human or LLM to parse without necessarily having errors and without there being cosmetics getting in the way. Am I right, Peter?
Yes, exactly.
Right.
You've latched onto it. Yippee.
So that goes back to in our arm wrestling here, my liking of EPUB. Because the way the EPUB origami idea is that this folder, which is basically what an EPUB is, that has basically an HTML file as the spine. First of all, we'll need a CSS super basic just so it isn't unreadable, but anybody should be able to apply their own. It is really, really important that other stuff should be there, right? For instance, LaTeX for maths should be one of the opportunities that should be renderable inline. To be pulled in at need. Seeing a digital document that has a table in it and that table is dead is the most abhorrent thing ever. I know we agree on that. There should be a way to extract that table cleanly. If there is more data, it should be available cleanly. Now, I want to show you guys something. I've been clicking buttons while we've been talking in our dear friend Imagine Art. So you see all these guys again, right? So I tried to illustrate citing, easy copy and paste citing. So just have a look at the journey it's gone. So we started with this, right? Which is not citing, but it is pulling things up on the wall. So then we go to this. Very quaint, but that computer isn't really up to date. But isn't that quite cool? Just pulling the text and it becomes CRT in the room. Crazy, right? So then we went to this, which is kind of getting somewhere. Not sure why that page is on the side. And this.
By the way, I did notice you said 1970s, and that's probably where it's getting some of these weird combinations of computers.
No, it's ahead of the curve. The reason that monitor looks so thick is because there's a whole GPU cluster behind the screen.
Exactly.
Right.
So there are 56 GPU chips and cooling unit in there, and that's why it's a real thick screen. The AI is really ahead of the curve.
Okay.
In that one, yes. I'm not sure about this one. But look what it actually does. Lifts it and puts it on the outside of the screen. Isn't that wild? I'll do that one more time. It's like a magic trick, right? So then we got this. But that's where I ran out of tokens, Tom. So I had to spend another £75 or whatever it was. So I'll see now what's left so we can help you with that calculation. And then there's this one. Pulling it off the keyboard, that's not useful. And this is beautiful. We all remember that era of machine, right?
Yeah.
So to have an iPad and an old... Isn't that cool? And I think this is the last one. No, that was the one I ran out. This is the last one. I haven't seen this one properly. That's pretty cool, right? Except for HP. Why is it HP? That has to be fixed.
And I think they should all have wands.
Oh, you think? One of the interesting things is film style. Yeah. Okay, so I did that one, and it says here generations 25 left. So I'm going to click now. This is an 8-second video I'm trying, which is quite long. So now it started. So if I mouse over generate, it now is 24. So it can do basically 24 8-second videos based on that. That amount of money. It is an interesting way to think, because it's not that long ago that these visuals were really, really awful, and now that I've started becoming comfortable with the music, I needed some kind of visual. So to have this now, to see it doing, actually, while we're chatting, I'm going to leave the...
So, as someone who has produced both or overseen the production of both video and uh, still graphic elements, graphic design, things, um, it's interesting because I've talked to a graphic designer, I talked to the video editor, et cetera, and the kind of conversations I now have with the AI, kind of makes me reflect on what was what's easier, you know, and that's a hard one. The thing is, with the AI, I can iterate so much faster
Yeah.
because I don't have to sit there and let them mess around with InDesign all afternoon and then come back and look at it 4 hours later and go, oh, yeah, that's right. But then do this and, you know, feel guilty about it because I was like, you know.
No, no, exactly. But also in the way that the summaries of our meetings are designed to be a little bit poetic. They pick up on different things that were highlighted sometimes in the meeting, and it actually helps me think in new directions.
Mm-hmm.
So looking at all these sillinesses here, I mean, look, these books floating in circles, that is not exactly what I asked for. But it's kind of evocative, right? This nonsense here. You know,
Mm-hmm.
would we want that? Maybe we do when we're writing, being able to have our core thing in a circle, right? I mean, we
That
do.
made sense to me actually when that part of the clip came, the part of the commercial went through.
Yeah, it's really interesting because Deanie, with the whole Sloan stuff, she was very focused on sitting on a, rolling chair in a 360 environment. I'm not looking at that this year, but for that kind of sighting, maybe it should switch to that. It makes perfect sense. Maybe you don't want to go across the room and do this. Maybe you should have, and I think this is very Peter, having a circular or a cylindrical library around you with relevant work. So you can pick and choose, and also,
Yeah. Well, like I do with Notebook LM, though, it should be not one library, but it should be multiple libraries that you can then categorize. So maybe at this point in the structure, I'm working on the pedagogical aspects of what I'm writing about. But now I want to get into system design because I'm trying to figure out how to reinvent, how to get the rest of the faculty to do the same thing and so on. So now I want to be able to flip a switch and suddenly the library that's floating around me is a systems thinking library and so on and so forth. And depending on, maybe I have a menu of different libraries that I can choose from. And maybe there's one where I just sort of mix things up. But the problem with the physical representation of books is it's a brick with paper
It's
in
1 o'clock.
so it's not telling me what's in the box, the book box.
oh, you're
And
so
that's
right.
the thing. Yeah.
Oh no, it's so important. There's some movie, I think I mentioned it before, where someone says something clever, someone else says, "Oh, how'd you know that?" And they say they hide that information in books. Books are absolutely hiding
Yeah.
that. There's no question.
Yeah.
And I look forward to be able to do more Peter style of nodes in space that show different things depending on what you need. I'm just not able to do it yet. Yes, absolutely.
I
And
think
I
one
can do
thing,
that already with Notebook LM. It's just I have to be the brain in the middle of it in that way. But yeah, sorry, Peter.
yeah, I think one of the things I like best about YAML is the potential to recursively nest YAML documents inside of each other. And the beauty there is that you basically have like a little pipe symbol and then indent everything, one indentation level, and then that's treated as the value for that particular key. But that indented document could itself be a YAML document that could have another document embedded inside of it. And just visually, it's a lot cleaner if you're looking at a YAML file in a regular text editor. You can basically follow that visual structure with your eye, and unlike the compact JSON representation where everything is just jammed together with explicit new line escape sequences wedged inside of a sea of text, you get that
Yeah, but Peter,
easy to.
you read different from most people. You basically read code, right? I think what we're talking
Yeah.
about when it comes to EPUB, the origami style, is you try to present the data richly so the user has a rich way to choose how to read. Like we looked at earlier in the headset today, you have your article this way, you have it this way. and you can just easily just change the configurations. But of course, we strongly agree that the data must be there to be able to do that. Right?
Yeah, and code folding support in editors is really critical when you're looking at big YAML documents, because you can basically hide entire sections and just expand the areas that you're interested in, which makes navigation of a long YAML document very easy, provided you're in an editor that has that code folding support.
Yeah, but Peter, you're not going to get the students of the world to convert to a new document format. It's just not going to happen. And the reason, after all these years of me working on Visual Meta with your help to have the metadata added to this horrible format, the reason I'm looking at EPUB is, too many trains in my brain there. It is because it can be simplified. So I've given all the major AIs access to the webpage where I talk about the origami EPUB to have them critique it, which has been an interesting process to kind of refine it. The key thing is the basic of it is stripped down basic old-fashioned HTML, which is really important because HTML now I think has been destroyed with all kinds of nonsense around all kinds of CSS and all kinds of management things. You can't just take a regular HTML file and open it in your browser anymore. You cannot do that. So if we go down the EPUB route, embedding YAMLs where appropriate, absolutely for that. And the main structure can say where that is. So then you have all the EPUB readers should be able to generate a readable version to some extent. So ideally, if I get my will in the world, the average person wouldn't even know what origami is. That's just an internal thing we talk about. It's just a stripped down EPUB. Oh, and it has metadata. That's it. And how the metadata should be there, Peter, you're absolutely one of the key people talk about how that should be done. But at the outside, wrapper to the world needs to be extremely uncontroversial.
Well, theoretically, the browsers should be able to directly render XML documents, and some versions of some of the major browsers had that functionality built into them a decade or so ago. And it's really going downhill since.
Yeah, and that's right. And I mean, I have, Vint agrees, he's going to be kind of a collaborator, whatever, for my piece on origami text. I'm going to send the article to Tim Berners-Lee as well, and even though he's a wonderful human being face to face, he's obviously overloaded and very busy. But my pitch to him should basically be, the web was wonderful and is wonderful, but there's a lot of clutter stuff happening now. So basically what this is, HTML in a box. And because of the visual meta addressing, which has many layers of addressing, including document names, EPUBs can link to other EPUBs. They can be entirely on your own hard drive or distributed. So it's.
I assume you've read Weaving the Web, right?
Oh, a long time ago.
Yeah, you might want to flip through the first half of that before you go, because he said some things in there. He's in all the ways that he thought that the implementation of the web as it evolved after he started the process, how that went sideways, and all the things he wished he could have had and done in there, because it might give you some ideas about how to think about these things.
No, that's a good point. I will do that. And I mean, I did work with Tim Berners-Lee on my PhD project. It was funded by something they were doing. So I've been able to listen to him in different places. And I have to say, I think he's much wiser than the web. The fact that he invented the web after having spent some time just listening to him, he's such a genius. It's absolutely insane. Sometimes that's a liability because he further thinks things than reality can do.
I have the same problem.
So not always so easy. But we are over time, and I'm very, very grateful for your time today, and hopefully on Monday week, because I aim to ship this the first week of January, simply because it's 6 months into the year, plus my birthday's the 2nd of June. No big deal, but a deadline is a deadline. It's like, let's get it done by then. So then I really hope it'll be much closer to something we can critique in more detail rather than me making excuses for this or that. And if you guys have a chance to go to the Apple Store, then maybe it'll be in there so you can put it on and pretend you're looking to buy the headset, but you're actually just testing out there. That'll be cool.
Oh, I'm going to be celebrating Memorial Day with Mom on Monday, so I won't be able to make it next week.
Okay, that's Monday the 25th. Right?
Yeah, American Memorial Day.
Yeah. Okay, well, we're going to be watching The Mandalorian and Grogu on the Saturday. I hope you will both be doing that as well.
Is that this weekend? Okay.
Yeah.
Right.
On trivial matters, this weekend we saw the movie Sheep Detective. Have you heard of it?
What was it again?
Sheep, as in sheep detective.
Sheep Detective. No. Is that a Wallace and Gromit movie?
No, it's not. It's actually. Hang on, I'm going to send you a link here. It's actually.
Or Aardman movie?
No. It's not. It's live action, starring Hugh Jackman and someone else. It's really good. It's kind of funny, but it's more than that. It's really a surprise, proper, family friendly, but adult, intelligent movie. It was really, really surprising. Highly recommended.
My favorite in that genre would be Peter Rabbit.
No, not that genre. This is a very different genre. But Peter, you should. How old is your mom?
88.
You should absolutely feel free, if it's convenient for you, to take her to see the movie. I think she would like it as well. It's a movie that the target audience is between 8 and 100. It's one of those. It's really quite fun. But okay, thank you for today, and I look forward to seeing you in a week. And Peter, I look forward to seeing you in 2 weeks.
Okay, have a great week or a great 2 weeks.
Yeah.
Likewise.
Bye, guys. Bye.
Bye.
Bye-bye.